Hello, wonderful people. Jeff here from Love Peace Money, where we believe in using money as a tool to serve our highest purpose and deepest values, and having fun along the way. That's nice too. So I got a great question the other day about how to balance spending in the present, saving for the future, and paying off loans. And if you are in this situation where you're trying to balance these three things, this video is for you. So, first off, I just want to acknowledge that this can seem kind of scary and complicated and just overwhelming. And I thought it's kind of like The Wizard of Oz, lions and tigers and bears, oh my. It's like spending and saving and loans, oh my. But if you remember in The Wizard of Oz, when right after they sing that, the lion pops out and they're scared at first, but as they get to know him, they're not scared and they realize there's nothing to be scared of. And with a little more information and familiarity, they're at ease and they become friends with him. And I think the same is possible with this topic. You can become friends with it or at least work with it, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming and scary. Before we jump into how to balance that, two overarching points. To me, honoring your uniqueness means accounting for the psychological or emotional, sort of intangible benefits that you might get from doing something. It's not just about the numbers. Then also remembering your situation is unique. Just because I lay out some rules of thumb, in your situation, you may choose to do it a different way, and that's perfectly wonderful. Here are the rules of thumb that are really the first priority before even thinking about investing or saving for the long term. You have to take care of your essentials, food and shelter and what you need to survive. If you don't do that, you're going to have a bad time. Minimum loan payments. If you don't pay those, you're going to have a bad time. And an emergency fund, which is 3 to 6 months of expenses just saved up for an emergency. If you don't have that, then if something happens, you might have a bad time. So these should really be the first priority before even thinking about long-term saving or paying off debt or anything else. These are really the top priorities because they protect against really catastrophic risks. The rest of this video is going to assume that you have these three things in place. And if you do, bravo, especially the emergency fund, that is an accomplishment. So great work. Okay, after that, let's look at what we can do. First off, saving and paying back loans are really two sides of the same coin. They both have their benefit in the future. It's setting aside money now so that you will have more in the future. There are two different ways of doing this. So let's simplify a little bit and just consider saving for the long term and paying back loans to be basically the same thing. And also, another simplification, spending and short-term savings are maybe not two sides of the same coin, but they're very similar. It's putting out money in the present or near present for an immediate benefit or a benefit very soon. So we're going to simplify our choices to just two things. Do we use the money for now or do we use it for later? As you can see, now would include that spending and short-term savings. Using it for later is paying back your loans and long-term savings. The question is, how do you want to balance those two? So I just want to be very clear. There's no right or wrong way to do this. There's trade-offs. If you do it one way, that has consequences, but there's really no right or wrong here. So don't get hung up on that. It's about you and your preferences and values and what's important to you. I'm going to go through three options of how to balance using that money for now or using it for later. You could just do half and half. After your essentials are taken care of and minimum loan payments are taken care of and you have an emergency fund, you could just divide the rest of whatever comes in and spend half of it now or in the short term, and half of it goes to paying off debt or long term savings. That's one option. I think it's a good starting point, at least. You could also start with saving and spend the rest. This requires a bit more work up front, but the payoff can be huge. So it's thinking about, okay, how much do I want to be saving, both short term and long term, but especially long term? How much do you want to be saving based on what you want your life to look like, when you want to have work be optional, certain maybe long-term projects that you're working on, then doing some calculations to find out what amount you want to save per month to get towards that goal, and then whatever's left over you spend. Okay, that's one option. The last option, let's say be careful with this one, would be to look at the cost of what you want your day-to-day life to look like and then save the rest. Now, I would encourage a little bit of caution with this because it's very easy to spend everything essentially, and that might be where you are right now, or that's where a lot of people are. So I just would encourage a little bit of reflection in terms of balancing what's truly important to you and balancing your long-term desires with the immediate desires. So yeah, the danger of this is that you just spend everything and don't save. Those are 3 ways to balance spending now or enjoying now versus getting more enjoyment later. So that should be 3 good starting points. And the last slide here is about, okay, with that money that you're setting aside for later, should you use it to pay back loans or invest? Now, this is not investment advice or financial advice because your situation is unique, but this is general educational concepts that hopefully can help you start to think about your situation. So, first off, if your employer matches your 401k contributions, you almost always want to have that be the first priority because, at least up until the match, they're doubling your money. That is really fantastic. So almost always that's the first priority. But then it gets interesting. The general consensus is paying off high interest debt, which I define as over 8% interest rate. Other people may have other definitions. But paying off high interest debt, I recommend to come next. And then it gets really interesting. If there's sort of a medium interest debt, maybe 4 to 8% interest rate, then the balance, choosing between that and investing is more up to you. I'll make a separate video about showing examples of numbers behind the trade-offs of paying off debt sooner versus investing and then paying off the debt later. I'll make a separate video for that because I think it's deserving of its own video. But if the interest rate is between about 4 and 8%, and you're choosing between paying that off or investing it for the long term, I would just consider what you might get more psychological benefit from. And if it's low interest debt, I would say less than 4% in investing for the long term. I would encourage investing. Obviously, this is not advice specific to you because this is just a broad video. All right. I hope that helps. I would encourage you to rewind this video and maybe go back to any parts that might have been confusing. And if this brings up any other questions for you, please comment them, reach out. I would love to hear any questions you have because that gives me good ideas for content like this. I hope this was valuable. At lovepeacemoney.com, you can find some more resources. And if you want one-on-one help to start to save more, that's what I do, and you can get more information about that there. Awesome. Have a great day, and I will see you soon.